Welcome back. So for this video we're going to go over the lucky ocelots. Now, out of the 6 animals in this game, in this particular Delve Merchants, this tends to be the favorite of all of them. Most players like this one the most. And the reason why is some of the cards with this particular animal work with this dice here. And there's nothing on one side. There's obviously a couple of 2s, there's a 1, and it goes up to 3. And so we will kind of go over how some of these cards will obviously work with this die. Now, playing with this deck is sort of a gamble. It comes down to pure luck. And I don't really believe in luck, but when it comes to games, I kind of do believe in a little bit of a possibility of randomness and luck for sure. Anyways, so with this one, it really comes down to the luck of the roll, or the randomness of the roll, if you will. So with the Bold Haggler, you may roll this dice once in your turn and then add the rolled value to this card's value for this turn. As you can see, it is a passive ability, but it says you may roll, meaning this is a passive ability that you may do if you want. It's not like the chameleons where it must be done. This one doesn't have to be done, but you may. So, as you can see, this is a 1 costing card, so if you roll the dice, you get to add the value of this to this, which now makes this a 2. And of course, it can go up to 4 because the highest number you can get is a 3. And so that's really nice. And so if you wanted to buy a card that was really hard to get, you had 4 junk cards sitting in your hand, and this as well, and this became a 4, then you have 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you could buy something costing 8. Now, when you buy a card from the market, this is something I probably didn't mention in the first very long video. When you buy a card from the market, it has to be exact price. You cannot overpay at all. So if you want to buy something that costs 5 and you use a 6 costing amount, you can't do that. You have to use the exact amount. So that's something to note. All right, let's move on. Okay, so here's another ability. This is a technique card. You'll draw 1 card from the market deck. If you can build a stack using only that card, do so. Otherwise, throw away the card. Meaning it would go to your discard, it would go to the market discard pile if it was thrown away. I actually got to do this once. I played with the charm. I drew a card. I had 3 stacks out. And the card I drew with this ability was another charm, which was a 4. And so I was able to create, with this technique, my 4th stall, and then I was able to actually create my 5th stall as well, because in my hand I had the number I needed to create my 5th stall. So I was able to do 2 stalls in 1 turn. So this is a very powerful card if you can manage to pull it off before you pass the 5th stall. Because once you pass the 5th stall, you can't use this ability to obviously create a stall anymore, because it has to be with only that card that came from the market deck that you drew. So that is something to note. But that's a pretty cool ability. If you can pull it off with the lucky charm, with the charm, that would be pretty lucky for sure. Okay, here we have Blindfold. Now you'll choose a card from your hand. If an opponent you choose guesses the card's value, discard it. Otherwise, you decide its value 1 to 5 for this turn. So you'll choose a card from your hand. Your opponent will guess the value. So let's say you choose a junk card. He doesn't know it's a junk card, but maybe he's thinking it's some sort of animal. He's probably not going to choose a 1. He's probably going to choose another number, and then therefore he didn't guess it right, and now you get to change that card's value for this turn either 1 to 5, which is really cool. So now that junk card could be a 5, for instance, if you wanted it to. That is pretty sweet. But only, of course, if they guess it wrong. If they guess it right, then obviously you're going to end up discarding the card that you chose. So that's another thing to note. And so obviously, if you go for junk every time, they're going to guess it right. So obviously, choosing a different animal might be a risk, because it could be a good, useful card. It might be a risk to end up discarding it, but there's a good chance they'll get it wrong. Still, there's only 5 numbers in the whole game, so it's really only a 1 out of 5 chances that they'll get it right. So your chances of them getting it wrong are still pretty high. So that's blindfold. Now this is a whirligig, another technique card. You'll discard your hand, then draw as many cards from your deck and shuffle them with another player's hand. Randomly give both players their original number of cards back. So, obviously, usually every player will have 5 cards in their hand. You're going to discard your hand when you play this technique. You're going to draw 5 cards from your deck, because, actually, you're going to draw as many cards from the deck that you, So you're going to discard your hand, you're going to draw as many cards from your deck and shuffle them. So obviously you play this card, you're only going to have 4 cards in your hand. So you're going to actually end up just drawing 4 cards. Those 4 cards are then going to get mixed with another player's hand of your choice. If you're playing with more than 2 players, you have a choice. Otherwise, it's just your opponent. And then the player, obviously, who had more cards mixed with the other cards will get their exact number back. So if you're trading with someone who has 5 cards in their hand, they're getting 5 cards back, you're only getting 4 cards back, because that's how many you put in. But you might get some of their cards. You might get all of their cards. They might be good cards. They might not be good cards. It's really just, really just random of what might be possibly that might happen. So this is another really interesting technique. Then we have New Season. With this one, you'll search your discard pile and throw away an animal folk card from there. If you do so, you'll draw 1 card from the market deck and place it into your hand. So obviously with this card, you're going to lose a card that's an animal folk card. And then you're going to have to throw it away, and you'll never see it again. You're going to search your discard pile to look for that animal folk card. So you won't be able to use this on junk cards, because those aren't animal folk cards, obviously. But the cool thing is, with this card, you'll be able to draw 1 card from the market deck and place it in your hand. You won't be able to draw a card from the market. You'll be drawing a card from the market deck. It could be a good card, and it could be an awful card. Who knows? But that's why it really just comes down to the whole fact that these are the lucky ocelots. All right, now we have one that's actually called Gamble. And this one does work with the dice. But this is also a technique. The other one was a passive ability, rather than this one is an actual technique. So you'll choose another player. If you only have 1 opponent, well, obviously we know who you're going to choose. You'll roll the dice and randomly exchange that many cards between your hand and the hand of the chosen player. Okay, so you roll the dice, and let's say you get 2. The number is a 2. Well, that means you're going to exchange 2 cards for your opponent's 2 cards. You're going to do it 1 at a time. You're going to take 1 of their cards. They're going to take 1 of your cards. But before that happens, you're going to make sure that the card that you're taking doesn't end up in your hand right away, because they're only going to be taking cards from the hand that you had before you played this card. Same thing with them. They're not going to put the cards they just got from you into their hand, so that way they can hope that you'll take them back, because they don't want them anyways. No, you're only going to take them 1 at a time, and you're going to make sure you take exactly 1 for 1, basically. That's how this one works. Of course, if you roll the dice and you get this, then you wasted the technique, because nothing else happened. And it could just be one card that ends up getting, obviously, switched with another player. But then again, if you're lucky, maybe it'll be 3 cards. And maybe they will be good cards. And maybe they'll be all junk cards. Who knows? But that's why it's called the gamble. All right, I think we went over all of the cards that were in this deck. Yes, that are different. That is all of them. So that's it for this video. See you guys again in the next one.